I'm Maddie and welcome back to the Essentials Club. I've started this channel as a way to help you to become more creative and resourceful and showing you how to make your own handmade minimal wardrobe. So today I'm going to be taking you through the steps of how to make your own mini wrap skirt. So what you need for that is your fabric that you want for that, anything that's like not stretchy or too flimsy as you need a bit of form for it, some pins, scissors, measuring tape, some matching thread, and then also like a clean paintbrush or pencil or something that's nice and long and clean like that. And then we need a sewing machine. So I'll show you through the steps of how to get this started and make your own mini wrap skirt. So the first thing we're going to do is get our measuring tape and figure out what measurements we're working with. We're going to figure out the width of the fabric that we'll be cutting. So we get our measuring tape, wrap it around us, and find the widest point that we'll be working with around here. For some people it might be their hips, others might be their butt. Yeah, just find that and fully put the measuring tape around your circumference for there. And don't pull it too tight, just like a loose amount so you can kind of shift it a bit. Mine's 40, so that's my full circumference. And what we need to do is we need to find that plus another half, as with the wrap skirt we'll be wrapping around and having a front panel as well. So the easiest way to find that measurement is get your full amount and times it by 1.5. So if mine's 40, my full cutting width will be 60, as that's 40 times 1.5. And then to find my length, obviously today we're making a mini one, I'm going to start at my belly button as I'm going to be wrapping it at the high waist area and measuring down to where I want it to go. So around the like mid thigh area is where I want that to go. So for me that is 17, and for this it's always better to add a little bit more just in case, because it's always easier to take away than it is to add them. So if you've got a pen and paper handy, that might be good at this point to write it down. So we've got our final measurements that we want it to end up being, but we're going to add seam allowance so it allows it to be able to take in and not lose too much. So for the width it was the full circumference times 1.5, and then we're going to add 2 inches, so that allows for the side seam allowance. And then for the length we're going to be adding a waistband, so we're just going to make it a bit extra of a seam allowance. So to allow for that we're going to add 4 inches. So just to recap, it's your full circumference times 1.5 and then adding 2 inches, and that will be your full cutting width. And then to find your length you figure out where you want it to stop and then add 4 inches. And that's what we'll be working with. Now that we've found those two measurements, we're going to cut out one big rectangle with that. So for the width we obviously do our full circumference times 1.5 plus the 2 inches, and we do that as the width, and then we find the length of it and just measure it out. So if you've got a fabric chalk or if you just want to go and cut it, this is where you would do that. So for my length of the fabric will end up being 19. I'm lucky that I've got lines on here so I can just use them as reference. I'll find the point of 19. Perfect, so I've cut out that first main panel and that will just be the wrap part of the skirt. Now that we've got that sorted, we can put it aside and start focusing on the straps that will help us tie up the skirt. That measurement we found for the full circumference and we timed it by 1.5, we're going to use that as the length of the straps. So mine was 60, I'm going to cut mine at 60 long, and then to figure out how thick to cut it, we're just going to start with that final measurement in our mind. So I want mine to be 1 inch at the end. We'll then double that as we'll be folding the fabric, so that's 2 inches, and then we'll add 1 inch for seam allowance. So start with the final amount, double that, and then add 1 inch for seam allowance. So all up mine will be 3 inches wide times 60 long. And I'll cut out 2 of them to allow for the straps. Now that I've measured and cut all them, I've got 2 straps and the one main piece for the skirt. So I'll show you the next steps and how we start sewing it all. Next we're going to start by sewing the straps. So we grab them and face the good sides up and then fold them so the good sides are facing in on each other. And we'll just fold that down the whole way, pin it in place, or you can just sew straight away like me if you want. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew across one short side and then down the whole length of one long side and leave the other short and closed. So I'll sew the both of them and I'll show you how it turns out. So I finished sewing that first one, like I said, one short side, one long side, and then leaving the other end open. I'll repeat that for the other one, so folding the good sides in on each other and then sewing down those edges, and I'll show you then how to flip it so the good sides are showing. Great, so those are both finished now, and that clean paintbrush or pen or whatever you ended up grabbing, I'm going to grab that and put it on the closed end and use that as a bit of like a pressure or point where you can push the brush but nothing starts pulling through. And then we grab the fabric and kind of shimmy it apart and just start pulling it over the top. And then once you get it going, you just kind of keep pulling. Obviously these are really long straps, so just kind of keep pulling and making sure it keeps going along. The thinner you do these straps, the harder this step is, because obviously when it's nice and open, that's easier to just keep pulling. And there we are, we've got the clean edges showing and no seam lines. And I'm just going to shake that brush out of there now. And then we have a nice clean strap to add to the skirt. So I'll repeat that step on the other one and then show you the next sewing step. And just by closing out one end and using this stick method, it's just an alternative if I know some people use a safety pin and use that to push it through, but I find this just a bit easier and more streamlined. So now that we've finished those straps, we'll just pop them aside ready for when we need them. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to add some dart points in the top area so that it hugs our hips a bit nicer. So the easiest way to do this is we grab the fabric. I've got it good side facing up, so when we fold it, the good sides are facing in on each other. And we're just going to fold it into thirds. So you fold one in there and the other over to this side. And you can kind of just like pick it up and shift it around so that they're all equal. So it ends up being 3 of our half full circumferences that we found. And the reason that I do that is because it helps us find the 2 areas on the edge, which are these 2 fully folded pieces. And that is where we're going to add the dart points in. So what we'll do is on the top corner, get our measuring tape, and I'm just going to measure in by 2 inches and then draw or pin a line down to about 10 inches down, and that can be our nice dart point. So get the measuring tape, find the 2 inches, add a pin or something in place there to indicate where you're going to start sewing. Then find your 10 inches down, again add a pin or a mark or something there to indicate where you're going to stop. And then you can draw or pin the rest of that line from that point to that point. So I'm just going to pin mine in place and use that as a reference. So now we've got that one side pinned down, I'm just going to flip it over. So when we're pinning this, it's actually on the sewing side that we'll be doing. Now this one has that extra little bit of fabric kind of hidden in the middle, so we'll just move that out of the way to make sure we don't accidentally sew it down. So we're just going to again do the 2 inches, put a mark in there, go down by 10 inches, put a mark in there, and then just fill in the gap from one to the other. Okay, so that's all sorted. I'll show you a close-up of where I'm sewing in case that you need that extra detail, and then I'll show you how it unfolds and looks and starts to wrap around me. Sorry about the pattern fabric, you can't really see the pins, but if you look closely from there to there, I pinned a line where I'll be sewing. So what we do is we just start at that 2-inch point that we measured in from the corner. I'll just remove that first one so I can start sewing. I'll pop the foot down and then just start sewing as normal from that point down to there. It's always good when you get to the end here just to kind of veer off and don't make it too sharp of a finish, as then it will just kind of pucker out and not look very good. So get nice and close to the edge, and then just kind of straighten out a bit. And then do a back stitch. And then you're all done with that first dart point. So I'll repeat that on the other side over here. So now you'll see when we unfold it, it kind of brings it in on the hips a bit, and that means when we wrap it around us, it'll hug our waist much better and flow out into our hip area. So we've got the 2 dart points on the side. Now it's up to cleaning up the edges and attaching the strap. So when I'm doing the mini versions, I like to keep one of the edges straight so it covers my legs and can sit underneath. And then I'm going to angle one inwards, so when you walk or when you look at it, it's kind of got that like on the angle split cute look to it. So I'm going to keep that edge straight, and I'm going to cut an angle on this one. And what we'll do is we'll see the dart points, and that will be the top edge, and we'll leave that to its full length, and we're going to cut down on an angle. So the way that we're going to do this is we're going to grab the measuring tape, and on the bottom edge we're just going to measure in by 6, just so I think that's a healthy angle in. Obviously you can adjust if you want it to be more of an angle when you look at it and kind of have more legs showing, then obviously you make this amount wider. If you want less of an angle, make it shorter. But I feel like 6 is the nice sweet spot. So I can either draw or pin from there. I'm just going to cut. So from the 6 inches, cut up to that top corner. Throw that bit of scrap fabric to the side, and there you have that angle, which when you wear it will just be a bit of difference on the other side. So the next thing we're going to do to start cleaning up is just do a double hem around the 2 side edges and the bottom edge. And what we do is, I'll start on that angle I just cut, is we'll grab the fabric, lay it down, and so we're looking at the bad side, and then we'll fold it twice. And that will just give us a nice clean hemline all around the edge and stop it from fraying. Obviously if you want that frayed look, this is where you can just leave it and just sew maybe one line so it doesn't fray too much. But I'm going to make it nice and clean. So grab my pins, just do the double fold around the 2 side edges and the bottom edge, and I'll show you how that turns out. And of course you can just do this in stages and then pin and then sew each side, or you can just do it all in one go and keep folding and then sew together, whatever you feel most comfortable with. So I've finished pinning around the 3 edges, and I'm just going to do one continuous sewing line and finish that all up. So just like we did around all the other 3 edges, we're going to across the top do that double fold, but this time we need to make it long enough so that it can fit the straps within it. So I'll show you what I mean. I'll start on one end, and I'm going to grab one of the straps, and obviously we have the nice clean end that we folded out, and we've got the unsewn kind of more frayed end. So that's one we're going to tuck away and hide. So we grab that, pop it in this corner, which is on one edge of the skirt up the top, and we're going to do one small fold, pop that in there, and then do the second fold, which tucks away the strap. And as you can see, that's just like kind of like a waistband thickness, and the strap will end up getting hidden in there. And with, if you want to get technical, just maybe like an inch of the strap hidden in there is perfectly fine. So do that double fold, one smaller one, one larger one to cover the full strap, and then just pin that in place. Then for the rest of the way across until we get to the other side, we just do a full double fold and just keep pinning in place. It's totally fine if the double folding ends up getting a little bit thinner in the middle. If anything, that's fine, because that's good, because then you don't lose as much length. So I'll keep going across, doing the double fold. And then again, as we approach this other corner, we'll do that small fold and then do the larger one where we can then hide the strap. And there we go, that's all ready to sew. So I'm just going to start on one end and I'm going to go down the side, which helps keep the strap inside, and then across the full top length and then back up to kind of secure the strap in. And I'll show you a close-up of where I'm sewing in a second. So obviously focusing on this top hemline, we've got one strap over here, all that top area double folded and pinned down. And we'll start on this edge. So this is the side length here, this is the top area where we'll be sewing, and we'll have that parallel to the machine. And we'll start up in this corner and just sew down this bit here so that we're securing in the strap, and then we turn the corner and then just keep going across the main top area. So I'll show you what I mean and how I do it. Pop it in place up in that top corner. So you're sewing over the main panel fabric and the strap is kind of hanging off to the edge. Start sewing. Do your back stitch and then just continue sewing down until you've got the strap properly secured in there. It might even be handy when you get to the turn this corner, just do another back stitch so it keeps it nice and tight and in place. And then leave the pin in there, lift the foot, or the needle. Twist it so the needle's still in place, and then put the foot back down, and then just continue sewing across the top like you would in a normal hem. You can see through the pattern fabric, there's just a bit of a squared edge there and the strap is attached like that. So now we should have a cute mini wrap skirt ready to wear out and about. We've got the straps all joined on each end, got the dart points in the middle for the hip area, and I'll show you a close-up of how I wrap it around me and maybe some little styling options. But I hope you enjoyed. I hope that made all sense. If it doesn't, let me know if you have any questions, and if you do give it a try, show me how it turns out. I'd love to see it. You can tag me at the Essentials Club on Instagram or hit me up in the DMs and let me know how it turns out. I've got the blog post version of this down below, so if you feel like you need some pictures in written format, you can see that as well. Well, I'll show you how the skirt turned out and I'll catch you in the next tutorial. Now, normally I wouldn't wear tights with this, but just to show you how to wrap it, I've popped them on. So we grab the straight edge that we left and we're going to pop that over first and pull the strap so it's over the top like that. And just making sure it's sitting at least like over fully this leg and at least like half of that leg, if not fully as well. And then we've got that strap over the top of there. This one then comes under and around. And then I normally just meet them on this side and just tie it up like that. And obviously, personal preference, you can tie them at the back, at one side. We've made them long enough to kind of reach anywhere. Then you've got that cute tie effect there and a nice mini skirt over here. And see that angle? This was what 6 inches ended up being. Obviously, if you had of, and my length actually ended up being a little bit shorter than what I had measured, so this would cover a little bit more. But if you made that angle a bit more, obviously more leg would show, that would sit over a bit more, and then less of an angle, it would come down straighter a little bit more. But essentially, this is how it turns out. A cute little skirt. I'll show you it styled properly without without tights, and how